Well, welcome to the 7 o'clock talk. Sorry it's so dark. We're trying to figure out the lighting and we're sitting in our front room and I don't know, it just is dark in here. But I like it dark because that is calming. But hopefully, you guys will be able to see everything. So, we're going to discuss the assimilation node. And over the next few weeks, we're going to go into looking at how functional medicine looks at systems biology. We really all, hi, Kath, we really all want to, um, as healers, as doctors, we want to teach people how to be healthy. And so we're going to go through it in a systematic way. And to do that, even in holistic health, we still break the body down into parts. So today we're going to talk about the assimilation node. And the assimilation node goes into digestion, goes into the microbiota, goes into respiration. And it is really one of the keys. Before we start to jump into this, hot and heavy, just to let everybody know, next week, next Friday, we are having Friday the 18th. We are doing a talk on hormones, and it's going to be actually live. So we will have people in the audience, and we will also have people in the virtual. So you're more than welcome to join us virtually. And if you live near us, you're more than welcome to come into the clinic and be there in person and ask your questions. But let's dive into the assimilation node. Hun, what do you know about the assimilation node?
It's a communication node, isn't it?
No, communications hormones.
Oh, then not a thing.
This is a way to think about stuff. So I'm going to I really hope you guys can see that. I'm going to move us to the side and see if I can see. Yes, you guys can see that. So what we are talking about is the assimilation node right here. And that node is one of the first nodes of the matrix that we really start to think about and look at, because it deals with something that we do every day. And you got to think about this. There's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 tons of food go through your digestive tract. Your digestive tract will see more toxins and more pollutants in a day than your immune system will see in its lifetime. And that's how important this is. So once we start to go into that, we can see that it's about digestion, absorption, the microbiota, and respiration. And so here we've got to start to think about what's one of the first things. Let's come back to here and let's remove that for a second. What's one of the first things that we test on people when they start functional medicine?
Oh, their gut, their microbiome.
We do
the flora.
We do the microbiome, and we also test people's hydrochloric acid. And interestingly enough, in the hydrochloric acid test, when we start to look at that, what we're looking at, it actually begins in the mouth. Your mouth, when you chew, it's very, very important to chew, because you're allowing these enzymes right over here to start to break down the foods into the sugars. That polysaccharides means many sugars. And so as you can see, this is a continual tube that goes down and around and through and goes all around and then out. And we want that tube to be very very, in medicine, we call it patent. We want it to be a continuous tube, and we only want the stuff to get into the bloodstream that is fully digested. This is one of the pathways to autoimmunity. So, as we have said before, there are three pathways or three things that have to be present to have autoimmunity. You have to have a genetic predisposition. You have to have leaky.
You have a leaky gut.
You got to have a leaky gut. And last but not least, you have to have a trigger. And the triggers can be anything. Triggers could be a knock to the head, about a COVID, a divorce, a marriage, believe it or not, because that is actually one of the stressors that they show because it's a life-changing event, birth of a child. So the trigger can be any number of things. And so that can start to take that. Yeah. And let me just stop for a second. If anybody has a question, please put it into the chat, because I'm just going to go on with this unless there's a question. And so if somebody has a question, I'm more than happy to answer that, because that stimulates a good transfer and questions come about and intelligent answers happen. And that's how people learn. And this is one of those foundational things. If you get this stuff down, when you come in to see somebody like me, then we don't have to clean up so much mess. We get to go to the faucet and turn the faucet off instead of trying to mop up the floor and turn the faucet off. We just get to turn the faucet off and start to dig right into what is really troubling you. So back to the digestive tract. And your stomach has hydrochloric acid in it. And that hydrochloric acid is very important. And hydrochloric acid can have a pH of 1 or less than 1. So it's very acidic. And when you eat something, it can go all the way up to anywhere from a 5 to an 8. But then after about 15 minutes, it should go back to the 1 or less than 1. And there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in that stomach. So when we talk about leaky gut, let's talk about common everyday things that cause leaky gut. Give me a couple. I know you know several, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Inflammation.
Yep, big one. Head trauma, like I was talking about. What's something that's really...
Antibiotics.
Oh, yeah. Antibiotics, ibuprofen, that crucifies the gut. That just opens the gut up.
You want more?
Well, what's something that we think is actually healthy that I like to do a lot, but it does cause leaky gut?
Like an activity or food?
Activity. Just straight up good old exercise.
Oh, I was going to say, well, you exercise. But...
Yep. So exercise.
But exercise has to be, you have to find your sweet spot of limit it, because otherwise if you overdo it, then you create all kinds of problems because it becomes a stressor.
Well, you've got to remember when you're exercising, and she's absolutely right, you have to have recovery. So if you're not some sort of Olympic athlete or professional athlete, working out in a high intensity way every day causes a lot of stress and does cause leaky gut. Your body wants food, it wants energy, and so it becomes hyperpermeable because it needs to move things through while you exercise. And so people who have who do a lot of endurance exercise, people who do a lot of high intensity interval training, they get adrenally suppressed, and eventually it does affect the thyroid. You know, and it's very interesting. I was doing some research for this to give little simple things. Do you know what a great thing for exercise induced stress? What one of the number one things to do?
Sleep.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking about nutrients.
Oh,
She's awesome at stating the best answer.
taking a nutrient
What's the number one nutrient
to
for?
combat the stress of exercise?
Mhm.
I want to say, I'm going to guess. Let's just say vitamin C.
Yahtzee. So the number one thing when they did studies on iron athletes and they did studies on high intensity interval training, and they were looking at people that were stressed during exercise and it caused leaky gut, the thing that helped the adrenals recover was vitamin C. We have a question. So does hormone imbalance play a part in leaky gut and autoimmunity? Yes, it does. Because your hormones actually affect your mitochondria, and your mitochondria actually affect your body's ability to produce energy. So your hormones absolutely do play a part in it. Now, is it the primary or not? Everybody's different. I wish I could say that, yeah, this was it. But here's a secret. If the doctor or somebody that you're talking to talks in definites and this is the way that it is and this is what's ailing you, we really don't know. That's why we call it doing laps around the matrix, because we clean up a bunch of stuff and then we reassess and then we clean up a bunch of stuff again. And that's the same process we've done with you. It's the same process we do with me. And it's the same process we do with our functional medicine patients. So it absolutely does play a part, because hormonal imbalance will actually cause you to be stressed. And if your estrogens are too high, that causes a whole different set of problems and a whole different biochemical stress on the body. That's why we say with hormones, you have to have the production of the hormone. You have to have transport of the hormone. The receptor sites have to be sensitive to the hormone. And then you also have to detox it out. And that's why we say, and we'll go into this next week, next Friday, that when we talk about hormones, the groundwork needs to be laid there, where we are watching inflammation, insulin, and things like that, because you can push testosterone, estrogen, and all of those things down pathways that we don't want to push if we haven't laid a foundation. And that's why we talk about this foundational stuff all the time. And the foundational stuff is free, easy stuff you can do for yourself. So back to here. So now, what raises hydrochloric acid? Well, there can be a problem with raising hydrochloric acid, because if you raise hydrochloric acid, you're burning your micronutrients up. And when hydrochloric acid is raised, that's a sign of dysbiosis. That is a sign that the bacteria in the gut are not good, or I shouldn't say good. Bacteria are not good or bad. It's if they're in or out of balance. And so having a large amount of hydrochloric acid can be something that is a sign that the gut is dysbiotic or out of balance. And so then your liver and your gallbladder put their mix of stuff into the stomach. And as they put their mix of stuff into the stomach, Casey's home.
What's going on?
We're doing our talk. So then the liver releases its stuff into the stomach, and the gallbladder releases its enzymes and stuff into the stomach. And so this is another thing to think about. So if you're eating food, and as you're eating food, you get a full stomach or gas or belching or bloating immediately up to 1 hour after you eat, there is some form of issue with hydrochloric acid, and that needs to be looked at. If you're getting that bloating and that full feeling and all of that 2 to 3 hours afterwards, that's a problem with liver gallbladder. And so we have to look at pancreatic enzymes and doing that. Another way to get those things moving are bitter foods. So when you eat bitter foods, that stimulates the liver and the gallbladder. So think of things like dark chocolate, like 80% cacao. Think of coffee. Think of just bitters, and then think of bitter foods. Those things all get it moving. And so when you're looking at even the eating of food here and bringing it into the mouth, it starts in the mouth and actually with the nose. When you start to smell that food and anticipate it, the juices all start to get going. And then we're supposed to, I'm doing all the talking, I'm sorry. Then what's one of the things that we have to do? When we sit down, what do we always do when we sit down? We say our
grace.
Say grace. Slow down.
Well, except when I forget that we've said grace, and so we say grace again.
Yes, but that's not happened.
I'm fixing the hormones so the brain fog is lifted.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
But that mindful eating, and
you got to socialize. Don't just shovel it in.
I'm the shoveler. But that mindfulness, that mindful eating, that is very, very important so that you slow down and you give the body time to catch up and not overeat, because when you slow down, you give leptin and ghrelin chances to work. So leptin's your hunger hormone, ghrelin is your satiety hormone.
And you got to listen to your cues of your body or you'll just eat through them.
Yeah, that's me.
It's not me, but
we all have our issues. And so if your hydrochloric acid is low, your gut can get dysbiotic, and that can cause that to be out of balance. And as that goes out of balance, then you get dysbiosis and you can't absorb things because the bugs in your gut aren't the right ones that they need to be to break down certain things. And once they eat those fibers, and the bugs in your gut eat the soluble and insoluble fiber. And as they eat the soluble and insoluble fiber, then they give off short chain fatty acids like butyrate, like acetate, like propionate. These are the things that heal our gut from the inside out. And those are the things that we want to have in us so that it helps this whole process work according to Hoyle, as my mom would say. But it's how things work together and in conjunction, and it all flows together. Because if you're not digesting your food, you're not going to make your hormones. If you're not making your hormones, then you're not going to have energy. If you don't have energy and you're not making your hormones, you're going to be immunosuppressed and you're going to get sick all the time. And then if you're not making your hormones and you're sick and your hormones are off, then you're going to be depressed. It's just a vicious cycle. So after we go to the liver and the gallbladder, oops, I got to do it this way. Add to stream. There we are. So as we go through the liver and the gallbladder, say the HCl is perfect and all that, then we start to go through certain segments of the gut. And each kind of layer of the gut there has different microbes, and they go from aerobic to anaerobic, and a lot of anaerobic digestion happens down here. And you have to have the bacteria present there to actually digest your B12. This is what happens to, well, I'm going to ask the woman that knows, because she's dealt with these patients. But what happens to patients who have had surgeries, bypasses, bands, Roux-en-Y's?
Short gut syndrome. They get dumping syndrome. they get sick, then they get obstructions, they lose weight. They don't have a very good quality of life.
Yeah. And so that's all the micronutrients. Those are the things, those bacteria, we need them to digest and produce what they digest and produce. So now back to the stream here. So once we go into that and we're looking at, we've made it through the small intestine and everything's gotten ate up the way that it's supposed to eat up, and we get to the large intestine, there's something called the Bristol, that's bad, the Bristol stool chart. And basically this is a way to look at what comes out here, and it gives you an idea of if you're inflamed or not. You can go on to the internet and look this up. There's all kinds of charts out there, but basically it's looking at your stool and telling you if you are inflamed, not inflamed, getting enough nutrients, not getting enough nutrients. Those are the things that it looks at. But even in this picture, it talks about the small intestines and the large intestines. And look at that. It's the mucus, protects the gut, peptides, sucrases, amylases, all of these things that we need to digest everything it takes to run this thing we call a body. And if you're feeding it full of junk, if you're feeding it full of artificial sweeteners and stuff like that, those are big things that cause dysbiosis. Those are big things that cause problems in our digestion and with the microbiota and with how we actually digest food. And this is a very quick kind of overview, but if there aren't any questions, I'll turn to you. Is there anything you like to say? Because I pretty much railroaded the whole show here. Next week, we will be on, next week we will be back. We will actually be covering the communication node, which is the hormone node. And on Friday, we will be doing a hormone question and answer. Probably a lot of the material will be a repeat, but other than that, any and all are welcome. Questions are welcome. And Susan, to your point on the yay chocolate.
Only dark chocolate, though.
We want cacao.
Like
and
really high quality.
Yes, 70 to 80%, not milk chocolate. Milk chocolate is sugar.
Sugar is bad. It should be bitter. It should taste bitter.
Yeah, it should have a little bitter to it, and that gets the juices flowing. But also, cacao has theobromine, which helps sleep.
And it's one of the most nutrient-dense foods.
Yep, that it is. So with that, I can't believe we got through that in 23 minutes. Like I said, there's a whole bunch there that could be covered.
Yeah, and that hopefully we'll get some of our people that come and have gotten their hormone therapies to share a little bit of their experience.
Yeah, I tell you, we really like the hormone therapy. That has been something that has been lacking in the practice. I don't do hormones. I don't do injections. That's actually not something that we do.
But he doesn't like a grumpy wife.
But more importantly, we like to help people. So that is somebody, that's how we partnered with others.
Just a little piece. It's a little piece that, and hopefully, well, actually we know we're getting great responses from our patients. So maybe they will share a little bit too.
Yep. So with that, you all have a wonderful evening.